Okay, let's tell the world. Streaming Blender doodling on Twitch. Alright, so I haven't really gotten in the mood to make a game yet, but I figured we could just play around some more in Blender. I ate some stuff I'm allergic to, so if I sound wheezy, that's why. But that's the nature of the game, right? So I'm just kind of throwing together a town for kicks here. And what I think I want to do for a little while is maybe just put together some assets or something. I haven't really thought about it too much. We're just going to keep noodling. We're just going to keep on doing nothing important in Blender, because why not? If you watch my YouTube channel, then you might know that I've been talking a little bit about city design. Gujian 3 had some terrible city design, and I just wanted to, put my money where my mouth is and kind of create some city-like stuff. And I think what we're going to end up doing is changing some of this out, because what I would like is, the idea is that you can see the castle. That's the, ooh, hold on. I forgot that if you're in edit mode, then for some reason it will make it so that none of the what the hell? Come on. This is not rocket science, Blender. This worked 5,000 times. It's only failing right now, the only moment that I'm actually live on camera. Thank you. Anyway, the idea is that you'd be able to see a castle up there from all the way back here, but I don't like the idea of it being a straight shot up. So I think what we're going to end up doing is replacing this area here with a hole, some kind of thing you can't actually navigate across. And then, we'll actually have to have some assets at some point. And there are a million assets available for purchase, but if I'm planning to do something on Unreal, then I won't be able to purchase any assets, since that would be supporting Epic, which I won't do. So I guess I'll need to make them myself. What a shame. You can see some of the more basic principles at play here, like this dip down that goes up, and the side stairs and stuff like that. It's all just sketched together at this point. There's nothing particularly groundbreaking or amazing here, but it's kind of fun to just noodle around in Blender, so that's what we're going to do. I guess the first thing I'll do is create some roads. Since right now I'm just using this as a road. So if we were to create a cube for our road, we could bring it up. Yep. Actually, we basically just want to move everything except for the cube. So let's select everything and then move it all. Shoop! There we are. And what we'll do is we will create a road that is, I don't know, 10 meters long, something like that. And, maybe we'll go back and change the length later. I don't know. We're just kind of playing around. That's the joy of it, right? So 2 meters wide would be fine if it was a walkway, but this is supposed to be a carriageway, so it's going to have to be wider than that. What we'll do is we will cut it down the middle. Why are you... So much of Blender just happens when you accidentally click a key at some point. But that's the nature of things, I suppose. So we need to make it wider, and to do that, we'll just tick. 6 meters wide is pretty wide. If we bring a person over, there we are, got some people here. If we duplicate this person, hello? If we duplicate this person, it only took 85 times of pressing the same keys, and bring them down, we can see how big the road is, and you can see that it's not huge, but it is huge enough, right? Now, one of the issues with this is that it is above the ground level, so we'll just knock it down to ground level, so it's completely flat. We could also delete the bottom if we wanted, or the sides. We could do anything. But what we've got is some random road-related stuff, just some placeholder stuff, right? Now, the issue with this is that it is not a particularly existent road. It doesn't feel like it actually exists in any sort of meaningful sense. So if we wanted to make it feel like it made sense, we would need it to have the right pieces for it to feel roady. The moon is a cheese says hello, I think. We're just playing around in Blender, not doing anything important. So one of the issues I have with the node-based Eevee rendering in Blender is it doesn't really support normal maps very well, generating them, that is. I haven't been able to find a way to create height maps. We've got this displacement, but that's not really the same thing, is it? I don't think it is. Well, let's take a look. Let's try it out. Because if I can get the bricks to displace properly, that'd save me a bunch of time. So, unfortunately, that's not going to be it. Displacement is... I'm pretty sure it's a material output function. Yeah, see it over here? There. So, I think the idea there is that it's a vertex displacement. So if I were to drop factor in here as height, I'm not sure that it would... I don't believe it's actually displacing in any meaningful sense. I'm not sure what's going on if the displacement is... no, I don't see anything here. It might be that the displacement requires a much denser sort of environment. So if that's the case, that's another big deal. We can just go ahead and subdivide it, see what's up. I'm not really seeing any offset here, so maybe I'm misunderstanding what displacement is, or maybe it doesn't work in Eevee. It might be one of those things that only works in cycles. It's not terribly important because we would be using it in a game engine. We wouldn't be using it in... We wouldn't be using it. Oh, you know what? I bet it is. I bet it is that it's expecting a normal here instead. But that just brings us right back to the problem that it doesn't friggin' support normal conversions at all. Yeah, so you can see how that broke it. That's fine. We don't need it. So what I would really like to do is, obviously we'll be using this in a game engine, so we don't need to be too careful about the materials here in Blender. But we do need to make it so that it makes some sense. And ideally what we would do is we would drop some values into this normal here to create some nice sense of depth. But as far as I can tell, Blender does not have any height map to normal functionality, nor does it have any height map functionality. I would love to find out that that's not the case and there's something simple I can do, but can't really figure it out. There doesn't seem to be anything. All I can do is pass it a normal map, which really isn't any use to us. That just gets the normal. I suppose we could try and perturb the normal, but that's not really what we want. I don't want to have to build my own height map system. You'd think that would be like the first thing they do. You'd think that that would be something relatively common. Hey, do you want to be able to generate textures? Sure. Well, then obviously you're going to have to be able to generate height maps and normal maps as well. It's friggin' obvious. Why isn't it right here in the node net setup? I don't suppose it's here under vector math. No, it's not. I can't believe it. Let's just look at it. Blender, node, normal, height map. Bump. Are you seriously saying that it's just called something stupid? Oh my god. Yeah, well, that's fine. Thank you, Blender. Nobody in the history of humanity has ever called a height map to normal map converter bump. But no, this is also not it. Alright, maybe it is. I can't tell. Let's try it. If we drop this into the height, and then this can be dropped into the normal. Oh, it works. Might be a little bit hard to tell. What happens if we drop in some noise just to see if we can really get it to work? Where's our just straight up noise? There it is. Yeah, okay, so that does do the job. It's called bump. Okay, everybody, if you ever needed to do this, you can just get the node called bump. You can't find it by searching normal or height or map or convert or anything like that, but you can get it by searching the word bump, which is 100% related to what we're doing. I guess some people do call height maps or normal maps bump maps, but that's not something that is normal. It's pretty unusual. Anyway, if we drop color in instead of here. Now the difference between dropping in color and dropping in FAC is that color should have something to do with the brightness of the bricks. But it's really hard to tell because the whole setup here is really super crisp. What we really want to do is have some... the bricks need to have some blurring. They need to be not quite so sharp. So this is mortar smooth. Mortar smooth should be what we need to make that happen, but I don't see any difference here with the mortar smooth. Do you see any difference with the mortar smooth? I don't see any difference with the mortar smooth. All right, so if we really give it a lot of mortar, then the mortar smooth matters. But apparently what it is it's not useful at a sub-pixel level. It's also smoothing the mortar. What we really want is the brick smooth. Can we find a brick smooth? Is there a brick smooth function? Squash? No, that's definitely not worth it. I don't know. Anyway, what we can also do is drop in more noise. Input, noise. No, it's texture. Noise. Drop that. Boom. So by dropping in that noise as a color, you can see that we get a result that is kind of streaky. Now this kind of streaky is due to the vector in use here. Obviously the best option for us would be to use the same vector in both places. There. And you can see that we have this crunchy, munchy bullshit happening here, which is fine. But it is way, way too rough. So we'll just bring that roughness way down. All right, so it doesn't appear that roughness does anything. You know what? I love how instead of telling you what roughness is, it tells you that it's an input value for an unconnected socket. Yeah, what's the value? Talk about least favorite tooltips. Why did that... That's weird. Alright, so that just makes it a random color, which is totally worthless to us. So what I really need to do is lerp that down quite a bit. So we'll just pull this noise back and then add in a vector lerp. You know, I bet displacement would work pretty well as well. But didn't we try displacement and we couldn't get... Why did you do that? Don't... All right, well, displacement added randomly into the middle of a line where we didn't mean to add it certainly doesn't do exactly what we want it to do. What we're trying for here is to find some way to crush the vector down. It doesn't appear there's any options to actually do anything over here. These don't appear to be... Maybe I guess we could try and... Do I need to do vector math? Okay, so here's a vector math. So if we drop that in here and then we divide it, floor it, seal it. What we want to do is lerp. Where's lerp? Why is there no lerp? I guess because the vector lerping is 2 vectors and a third argument rather than can we just remap it, I suppose? Let's try that. Exciting. So we can just bring this to like 0.9. And there you can see we just get a little bit of noise out of that. So that is pretty decent. And that leaves us with a material that is kind of fun looking. It's not terribly better than what we had before. But what I was trying to say is that I don't want to send over a road that is actually chopped up with vertex level, mesh level bricks. That would be hugely wasteful. Yeah, we may want to do that for certain kinds of roads or something, but it would make very little sense for this particular situation. But what we do want to do is add in some curvature to the road, because these roads are not completely flat. If they were, then the rains would cause a lot of trouble. So what we need to do instead is raise up the center of the road a very small amount. Like this. And when we're doing that, we can also take this bad boy here and bevel it out. And we could, I'm trying to think about how to do this. Do we want to have 2 materials? I don't think so. What we really want to do is have this be a little damaged spot where the road has, and that's not anywhere near looking like what I want it to look like. Oh, I am quite sleepy. Let me just create a divot that's like this, perhaps. And so the thing about this is that it's bottom rung crap at this point, but I'm trying just to put together some basics to get the feeling for what I need to do. So if we name this something evocative like carriageway 10 meters, then we can just use Alt-D to duplicate it as a linked object. And then we can use that. And then if we ever change it, we can change it. It's not that big a deal. And that's the secret of this. But one of the things we have to do is we have to move this whole shebang there, because we want the fulcrum to be at the center point rather than in the middle of the road. It just makes it easier to assemble the roads, at least in the situations I use. So if we just put it down here, and now if we were to rotate and hit X, you can see that we can rotate around the fulcrum point. See that? Of course, the material we're using is garbagey, so that's something that we're going to fix next. But first, we're just going to tip it down by 5 degrees for now. We'll come back to that later, I suppose. To be honest, most of the time when you do this, you do not want to tip it. What you want to do instead is have a road that is offset, that has the curve built into it. There's a lot of reasons for that. But we'll do that in a second here once we finish building this road to be a little bit less silly. You see how we've got this going here? That's because of the textures we're using and how we're setting it up. What we really want to do is just take a look at this road, and then we want to unwrap it with project from view bounds like so. Then we can go over into our UV editor here, Chabao, and you can see that it's got itself a nice setup. This is a road that is mirrored, so what you're seeing is half of the road. This means that it's much, much wider than you might expect, but that should be okay. if we switch back into the shader editor here, we can switch over from using this vector to using a UV vector, and that should be all we really need to do. So we'll just delete this, kapow, and put in a UV, if we can find the UV map. UV map. UV. I have a feeling that's not right. I have a feeling that is It may also simply be that the scale is too big. If we were to drop this, okay, so yeah, because we're going from world coordinate to scale coordinate, it's obviously a little bit different. So if we just bring the scale up to something a little bit more reasonable, it should be okay. But we're going to have this distortion because we are distorted on the UV map. We have a situation where our UV map is wider than we might want it to be. One option is we can narrow the UV map. One other option is we can narrow the coordinates used here. Makes more sense to narrow the coordinates used for reasons that should be relatively obvious. So if we were to go over into vector converters, we should be able to break this up. There doesn't appear to be a separate 2-digit. It appears to assume every vector is going to be 3, which isn't really what we want, but that's okay. Anyway, and then we want to add it in again, so we'll just come down here into converter, combine. The Relin stopped in. Hello, the Relin. Let me just pop that through. And this is also going to come down here. We just move this whole thing, soup, and then we have the same thing we started with. But we can then do some math. So if we grab a math node, math on the x-axis, and all we need to do is divide it by 2. Or we could multiply it by 0.5 or whatever, right? If we just keep dividing it, you can see the road gets wider and wider and wider. 4 is about right, so that's what we'll go ahead and stick with there. And obviously this is all temporary crap. We're not too concerned about it. But since we're here in the midst of this setup, one of the things we could do is we could paint this. So if we go over here into vertex paint, right now everything is painted white just by default. And what we can do is we can switch that over to being painted in black. And we'll just paint this portion in black. That's a little bit too aggressive with the paint there. There we are. And we can use that. So if we come back out to this mode here and go back out to object mode, we can multiply the color that we're giving off by the color that we've added in. So if we add in another processing color, we could just adjust the gamma, I guess. It's a very silly way to do it. We could also mix RGB. Ah, yeah, this is what we want. It's a lerp. I don't know why it's not called a lerp, but it is. So if I bring that down here, we can use the color. Then if this, we're going to make it here, this is what we want. We're going to want to get the color of the material, which should be under geometry data. Color. Nope. Okay. Color. Object info, color. There it is. So this is object though, right? I don't think this will work because it's asking me for an object, and the object isn't really what we want, is it? Let's find out. If we bring down a black here, yeah, so you can see that's not working. It's asking for the object's color. I don't want the object's color. I want the surface's color as dictated by the color painting. I bet it's under particle info. There was something really stupid. I can't remember whether it was in Unity or Blender. Nope, I don't guess not. That's just a color. Vertex color. Okay, there we are. Boom. See, we painted it. And now what we can do is modify the vertex color by some noise. We might as well reuse the same noise, I suppose. So if we do that, we can just drop this into the color section here. And there we go. Very, very primitive, but at least it tells us what we're up to. Only issue here is that this color ends up being very bright. It's far too bright, so we'll just use this one instead. Wow, that's actually brighter. Okay, well, we'll just cut and paste this range and do the same thing, but with a value that makes sense for us. Whatever, it's fine. We're just playing around, so I'm not too concerned about it. Anyway, if we were to then take this object and... well, that was Alt-D. We wanted to Control-D in this case. Or Shift-D? Shift-D. Basically, we don't want this to be linked up because this is going to be a carriageway ramp, 10 meter. We'll call it a 10 by 2. And then what we're going to want to do is have this ramp move up 2 meters. Like that. And in order to make this... the reason that this is good is because you almost never want to have a straight ramp. It just feels unnatural. Moreover, if we had a straight ramp, then the edges would stop lining up because we would be tilting the whole thing, which means we would be tilting the edges. And since this is a road with a rise in the middle, that would create a constant chatter at the edges of the roads, which would be pretty noticeable. But what we can do is we can break this up and try and get the right kind of rise out of it. And that's usually going to be a sinusoidal rise. So we'll just eyeball it, no big hurry here. And then we can bevel, and then come up here and bevel. There. So now we've got a nice gentle sinusoidal rise. If we really wanted to play with this, we could also change the way that the center line works. So we could grab some of these center points here and just there we are, and just move them in a touch, more or less. So with that in mind, we can delete this bad boy, bring this bad boy in, duplicate it, switch it around, and then put it into the right spot. Like this. And you can see that as a 2 meter rise goes, it's got a very specific 10 meter length, which means that it is not going to cover this drop we've put in, which is a 4 meter drop, I believe. If we were to duplicate it and move it out and then bring it into place, what we would end up with is a double drop that wouldn't feel quite right because there's this big bump in the middle. It would work, but I'm not sure that it's what we want. Let's go ahead and just take a look and see whether or not this... I mean, you've definitely got a bump in the middle. I'm not going to say that that's definitely the wrong thing to do, but I think what we want to do is create just a larger ramp. We'll just have another one. It's not a big deal. These things are super easy to make. So all we really need to do is drag this back and then add in another mirror. Oh. There we are. And we're going to have to apply that mirror modifier today. Oh, we've got a subdivision modifier applied to them. We definitely don't need that. That's just going to make things loud. Just delete that. But we need to apply this. And then once that's applied, we can come in here and cement them together. There's going to be some leftover faces in the middle of the road here, which we can just delete. Not a big deal. And basically, we want to go 4 meters instead of 2. Not a big deal. Just grab this edge here and then turn on some proportional editing and go down 4 meters. 1, 2, 3, 4. We want to use the correct curve for this, and in this case, I think the sharp curve is probably best. What I want is a really, really strong, smooth curve. That's fine. We'll just adjust it manually. So, to adjust it manually, we'll turn this off, and we'll just do some stuff on our own. Thank you very much. Oh, the only problem we had is that it's actually not subdivided, which makes sense. So we'll just put in some cuts and try that again. Yeah, that's pretty good. I don't think we're going to worry too much about getting it absolutely perfect, but it would be good if we were to just drop down this section a little bit more enthusiastically. Yeah. So we're going to go ahead and move this. There we go. And this is going to be our carriageway ramp 20 by 4. Yeah. What did I call this one? Oh, it's just got a different number of spaces. Brilliant use of spaces there, Craig. Make everybody proud. And then we can just drop that into place. This actually goes down rather than going up, which is fine. It doesn't really matter. So now we have a carriageway ramp that goes along a curve that makes a little bit more sense. And it may look like this is not fitting into the level, and that's because it doesn't. I've just put the level in kind of arbitrarily. As you can see, the ramp that we put in the level is actually substantially shorter. I believe it's closer to 16 rather than 20 meters. We could either shrink this one on the y-axis, or we could move it back, our choice. In this case, let's try shrinking it. If we shrink it down to roughly the same length, you can see that the damage is much, much lesser. Not as significant. Now, if we were to bring this bad boy in, we could just bring it over and have it come out like so. And you can see that it's got a really nasty little offset. See that? How it's not lined up properly? That's kind of weird. Why isn't it lined up properly? My guess is we accidentally screwed something up. Yeah, you can see that there is no problem there. When we moved this down 4 meters, I'm not sure that we actually moved it down 4 meters. It looks like it might have only been moved down 3.995 meters, which is not really great. I'm not sure why that happened. It's super obnoxious, but we can probably fix it. What the heck? Move! Thank you. Yeah. For some reason, I ended up short. Or did I? So that's the precise amount short. That's a little bit strange. If we take a look here. Now, the Z is at 0.4 meters. Is this at... It's my fault for being a dumbass. All right. So that lines up just fine. And as you can see, we can easily slide it back. It doesn't line up perfectly if you slide it back, but that's not something anybody's ever going to care about. And what you'd probably do in reality is you'd set Unreal up to actually generate these or something similar. But there's some stuff I want to do with roads that I need to have a little bit of a more correct, more delicate control over how the roads happen. So with that in mind, let's create some footways. We've got some carriageways. And so for some footways, we're going to basically do the same thing. But the difference is that we probably aren't going to want 10 meters, or was it these are 20 meters. I'm not capable of counting. I was wondering why they seemed so big. These are all 20 meters, not 10 meters. Because for some reason I thought this was a 5 by 5 grid. It is actually a 10 by 10 grid. So this one will come in rather nicely at, thank you, at 10. So this will be footpath 10 meter, like so. And so the 10 meter footpath, 2 meter wide footpaths are really narrow. I think we're going to want to have a special path for super narrow footways. But 4 meters wide might be a little bit too wide. Let's find out. So if we were to move it to the side and then delete this face, you can see how that feels pretty wide. I guess it's about right if we are planning on using this game for some kind of fantasy thing where we might have to fight on it or something. It's just the correct width is 3 to 3.5 meters, which we could do. It's not that big a deal. But it wouldn't line up very well in terms of snapping. So we're going to try it. But what we might be better off doing is creating a 4 meter wide chunk, which has the side half meter preserved by some kind of rail or guide or something. So if we move it in, we can just like chicka 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 chicka, and now there you go. It is now 3 meters wide, which is the correct width. But I'm not at all sure that 3 meters wide is the correct width for us. It kind of sounds like it might be hard to move around correctly. But we'll give it a shot. We'll see what we can do with it. Anyway, for the walkway here, we're going to want a footpath, but our footpath is going to be a little bit of fun. We don't want to have a real samey footpath. First step is to get ourselves a material for our footpath, which is going to have to be the same material, but we're going to duplicate it and change some stuff around. So this is pavement. Duplicate, and we'll call this footpath. Now, the footpath we're using is the UV is a little screwed up, but that's okay at the moment. We'll just go ahead and tweak it a chunk. First off, we're actually going to just delete this guy. Have nice clean bricks, and we're going to make the bricks nice and bright. And we're going to make that mortar real thin. That's interesting. The mortar is not doing what I expected it to do. That's kind of cute. It's unusual. I'm not sure exactly what's going on here because it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing, which is creating multiple colors of brick. How did I manage to break it? You can see how all the bricks are the same color? That doesn't make any sense. So maybe it's the mortar smooth? No? That's weird. How did I break it? Well, easy enough to fix. We'll delete the bricks. And then we'll add it again. What happened to the UV map? Did I somehow delete the UV map? Oh, it's just way the heck over here. Can I revert this back to duplicate, delete, copy, paste, delete with reconnect, ungroup, edit? There's no revert to defaults, so we'll go ahead and do that. So something about this lerp up here is causing it harm. It's fine. We'll delete that lerp. No big deal. All right, so drop this vector in. There we go. Bring the scale down, up. Bring the scale up. And we'll change some of these values so they don't suck quite as much. Oof. Yeah, whatever. And what we're going to want to do is add in some flare, some verve. And to do that, we're going to run some wooden paneling along the side. So for that purpose, we're just going to bring in an edge like this, and then pop it up a little bit, like this. And then just set that up as being a different material, for now at least. Ooh, that's a very dark wood. Let's see if I can change that out for a different wood. There we are. That's a very bright wood. Let's bring this wood's brightness down a touch, yeah. So, footpath, exciting stuff, I'm sure you'll agree. So if we were to duplicate this footpath and move it around a little bit. Because it is at 0, we're getting some Z fighting. We'll just move it up a tiny little notch, just so that we can see it. And then let's just take a look at it. It's pretty primitive. The idea here is that we don't want any cross-hatching, but I think we would be better off if this had some side hatching. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to come back inside. We're going to grab this, move it over to the side by 0.5, like so, and we're just going to cut here, and we're going to create some fun detailing in the middle of this setup. Now the way to do that is to put in a ton of cuts, but in practicality we don't want to put those cuts around the rest of the system. We don't want the rest of the road to have those cuts. So therefore we'll punch them out into a separate object for a little bit here, and then we will just cut. There we go. And then I can come up here and do Control-Alt-Shift-S and hit Y, and you can see that I can adjust the cuts however I want. And basically we're going to adjust the cuts so that they line up more or less with the tips, but it might be easier to do that by simply... Seriously? Blender's new select option is so strange. I'm not sure what it is, but half the time when you tell it to deselect, it will do something else, and it won't deselect. And I think that I'm misunderstanding what Blender is trying to do, but do what I want you to, not what you think I want you to, you know? Basic idea here. And you can see that I specifically went out of my way to select all of the verts, and it still didn't select them. So we'll do that all again. There we are. And then in order to make this work, we're just going to extrude this last one by 0.3. Nope. Extrude y 0.3 negative. Enter. Thank you. Why is this so hard today? Anyway, to make this work, what we're going to need to do is select all of these loops. There we are. And then we can just bevel them, but I think we might have to deselect the edge loops on the tips. Yeah. So give me a moment. Just, oh, for feet's sake. Not these. Fuck. Really gonna be a pain in my ass. Now to deselect up here, do you think maybe I could do a box select with Alt? No. A box select with Control? No. A box select with fucking Control Alt Shift? No? Okay, so apparently you can't deselect something via a box. Why is this not... Oh, for fuck's sake. Blender's doing a great job of making me feel deeply incompetent today, but maybe that's because I'm tired. Anyway, we do this, and that'll give us a set of pretty reliable pieces, except for the small fact that for some reason this one set is beveled in a really stupid way. And the reason that is because of this overhang here. So I guess we'll ignore it. Just do this. And then we can delete the overhang. But why didn't it do it over here? Why is it... That's so weird. Oh, that's because this is the side I extruded. That's fine. Anyway, we just need to select all these bad boys. Select similar area. There we go. We got an extra one, but we can just deal with that. And then we can just extrude down. Boom. Perfectly fine. The last thing we need to do is chop it. So to chop it, we're going to create a brick. Move it down. Move it over. Duplicate it. And move it up. Woo! Everything lined up. Everything's lined up. Doom. Perfect. Oh, okay. Well, apparently that I forgot that when you do that Boolean operator, the new Boolean operator, it actually applies the mirror modifier, which is a strange choice, but it's okay. We'll just delete everything and just put it back. There we go. And there we have it. We have something kind of fun. There are some pieces that still need to be tweaked just a touch. These tips, for example, are going to need to be closed. And these as well. It looks like we've got one that is not perfectly set up here. That's fine. Just close it. Not a big deal. We have some Z fighting here and there and everywhere, which we can fix by simply switching over to active element, grabbing all the pieces that are in the wrong spot for us, and moving them up. But the best way to do that would probably be to select all of the ones that are crappy. Like this. And then there. And that should have moved all of them up to the same spot. It didn't. Okay, well, let's try it again. Fucking hell. Let me select it. And then do it again. There we are. More or less. Anyway, if we look over here at the road that we've set up, you can see that we now have those same elements built into the roadway. This gives us a real sense of directionality to the road, which may not be what we want. It also may not be a very good look. I'm kind of just playing around, as you might have heard. So ideally, what we would really want is the ability for us to drop down a curve and then have the road get built automatically along that curve. Technically, Blender does have that ability, but in practical sense, it's never been very well developed in Blender itself, and I don't really feel like buying a plugin. So, you know, we'll just play around with this a little bit longer. So obviously the place where this actually goes is up here. So right now we have a bridge up here, but I think what we need to do is delete this bridge and have a giant gap. So might as well do that. And I don't think we need this. Well, we'll think about exactly what we want to do there. But the idea here is that this area is not where you would walk up. You don't want people having a straight shot from the entrance all the way up to the palace. That would be a little bit... I mean, people come streaming in with swords and walk straight up to the palace. It makes a little bit more sense to have them divert a little bit. So to get around this little hole here would be the point. And the idea is we could build ourselves a little square here where the center would be maybe a fountain. A really, really big fountain of some kind. So in order to do that, all we really need is a cylinder, which we can then move up into this area. And then, you know, move it up. That's 10 by 10. That would make it 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 meters wide. 20 meters wide might be a little bit too wide. I think that we should go with maybe 15 is a good size for our fountain. So the idea here is that this would be something where our interior area would come down, and it wouldn't really be passable. There'd be some kind of like water barrier happening here. Do I have water? I don't seem to have any water at the moment. That's fine. For now, we'll go ahead and just add some default footpath. Why not? And then we'll just add in glass for now. So if we're wondering how big that is, here's the thing. It's really easy to make something and then have it be just an arbitrary size that doesn't actually make any sense. Happens all the time. You end up, I want to have it be big, and you just kind of eyeball it and it doesn't work out. So if we were to go into the game world and take a look, you can see how big this actually is. For some reason, jump didn't work, so we'll just manually float up here, I guess. You can see that it is a moderately sized water trap of some kind. So it seems like it's a little bit small, but I think that the basic size is right. We just need to expand this part. Like this. And we can also show that by grabbing some humans and moving them over here. Where are you? Where? Ah, I'm not exactly sure how. Oh, you know what? When we... Annoying. Alright, that's fine. We can fix it. Hello? Thank you. So we can always put a person there to make sure that we know how big it is. And, then we can come in here and, like, just create some surface. Oh, she's flying. So that we don't lose track of exactly how big things are. The idea is, of course, that we would... Whoa. Oh, you know what space does? Space isn't jump. It's teleport to whatever you're pointed at. And it could be pointed at something that's cold. Not brilliant. V is jump, but it doesn't work. Interesting. Anyway, it doesn't have to work in Blender. It just has to be the right size in Blender. This lady is on the smallish side. It's just a generic make human lady. And I believe that she's like 1.6, 1.65 meters. She's not really very tall. And I can't tell because, unfortunately for me, I've got city in the way. Who cares? That's fine. So when we look at, how big an area is, having a human model in the area really helps. And anyone that's ever done architectural visualization can tell you that. But by having this barrier here, the barrier itself doesn't have to be very big, because the real secret to what we're doing is you can't get to the palace from here. There's no walkway up to that set of stairs. So you have to go around in order to go upstairs that are over here or something similar. This is a very simple way to make sure that there is, no straightforward path. And we've done that before here. We've got the same setup for this part, where you can see you can't just walk straight up there. You have to go around and up this little thing. It's the same idea, except for this one will probably drive you through some kind of potential checkpoint. Something where, a local constabulary will be like, oh, are you sure you want to go to the palace? Something like that, right? And what we might do is we might make that something which actually goes to this here. And if we do it right, what we can do is we can have it come off of one side and then have the other side be a viewing platform. So if we can get the mouse to behave, we can... Well, right now there's buildings in the way. We'll just delete some of these. It's not a big deal. They were just there as a sketch. So if we were to grab these here, let's put a person up so that I can see how big it is. Yeah, that's plenty big. So basically, if this is our staircase up, well, thank you. Then what we can do is just have that come down and around like this. And this is just a sketch. This isn't actually where it should end up or anything like that. We're just kind of playing around with it. Something like that. And if we wanted to... That's interesting. It's strange that it didn't catch all the pieces I thought it would. That's fine. If we don't move it so it's like this instead, just so that you've got a little bit more space to work with or something. And then on the other side, we could have a viewing platform, which would be more like... I don't know. But by having it be a little bit asymmetrical, my mic has been slowly slouching, and I have been following it. By having it be slightly asymmetrical, we can give it some weight. Now, the important thing to realize is that the sun is also asymmetrical, and that's kind of the point here. So the reason that I chose that side as the viewing angle is because if it was on this side, then the sun would hit the view platform and it would cast this giant shadow down on those houses there. But because it's on the other side, then the only thing it casts a shadow on is the roof of these buildings, which is fine. And in fact, we could like put slums over there if we wanted. But the point here is that we'll be having some military sort of things going on over here where there'll be the guards region or something, I don't know. And it's not going to be overblown or anything, but it is not going to be this shape because this part right here would be inside. It would be inside of a secure building, and so it would probably be considerably bigger. So... Don't know, just kind of goofing off. Anyway, I think that's enough goofing off. How long have I been going? For like an hour and a half? Yeah. It's not the most... Oh, it's only been an hour. Not the most interesting thing ever, but my voice is going, so I guess we'll stop for now. I just thought I would get back into the streaming flow of things, even if the streams suck. And this isn't really leading up to anything as far as I know. I'm just trying to wake up. Have a good one.